Welcome to Gear Shift, a podcast dedicated to all aspects of vehicle ownership with your hosts, Christoph and Casper.
Sweet baby Jesus.
It's a good sound.
That's definitely a Honda Civic.
100%.
Could you pinpoint a year?
I'm gonna go 98 Civic Si.
Sweet Jesus.
Probably the most
Blue.
accurate guess we've had. All right, everybody. Welcome back to Gear Shift. I'm Christoph.
I'm Casper.
And we're here today with a very special guest host, Charles, also known as the Humble Mechanic.
Yeah, what's up, everybody? Thanks, guys, for having me on the show.
We thoroughly appreciate you and having you on the show with us. And congrats to being our first Skype caller.
Nice.
There's no prize involved.
No,
We're just giving you
no.
a congratulations.
And there were 7 callers ahead of you, Charles.
I'll simply go for the accolades from the audience.
Perfect. And also, we're joined here by Chewy, the
Yes.
Australian Shepherd pup. He is ripping the shreds out of his sock monkey squeaker toy. But he's all right. He's cool.
No, he seems all right.
This is episode 15.
15.
We are recording ahead of time, so forgive me if anything seems dated by a week or two. So this is going to be an episode about the dealership service department. This was kind of an impromptu one we threw together real quick here, but there's a lot of good information, being that Charles is obviously, he's a mechanic.
Yes.
And he does work
He's quite
for,
humble as well, actually.
I've heard that. And he works for a Volkswagen dealership, and I have worked at 2 dealerships, and also as a small mom and pop shop as a service writer and in Volkswagen sales. So I think there's a lot of good information for our listeners from a consumer standpoint of what goes on behind the scenes.
And I actually know where 2 Volkswagen dealerships are, so I'm right there with you guys.
I mean, this is basically 150 years of expertise in the figurative room, so
combined.
to say.
I mean, Chewy brings a little bit. He rode in a Volkswagen once, so
I mean, he knows it out. In and out.
I stayed at a Hotel 8 once. But before we get going, Charles, we got one sponsor that I don't know why, but he keeps this thing going. It's the Bearded Detailer.
I've heard of him. I've heard of that guy.
Is it because you have a beard?
It actually is. Like, as it grows, you sort of automatically get put on this email list, and you get introductions all around the beard universe, as they say. And
I actually thought
cool.
I thought the beard acted as an antenna, and it just attracted other beard related things.
It's Beardar.
Beardar.
Yeah, you can sense when somebody else. And actually, I've got this, and I'm sure you have too. All people with beards look the same.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You look like. Were you at Applebee's the other night? No, I actually don't like Applebee's at all. I swear, I saw a guy with a beard just like you.
Hey, do you deliver toys on Christmas Eve to people? Is that you?
You look like one of them Duck Dynasty people. Are you a Duck Dynasty person?
I get that one. I get that dude from what the hell is that show? I've never. watched
Grease
it,
Monkey
so.
Garage. Aaron.
Yeah, that one. Some dude is like I'm on lunch, right? I'm getting, I don't know, a Chick-fil-A sandwich in the middle of North Carolina, and some dude's like, "Oh, you're that guy from that show, Fast and Loud." I'm like, "Nah, dude, sorry."
I would start owning that and be like, "Yeah, man, yeah. You want to buy my lunch?"
Yeah, that's what I should have said.
We could put it on the gram. You can tell people you bought my lunch.
Yeah, so we're going to kind of dive right into this here. Keep it, go right to the point here. So, first of all, as we ask all of our guest hosts, how did you get into cars? Are you actually a car person, or do you just work on them?
Well, I feel like I'm in this sort of weird space of like really into cars, but not in a way that a lot of other people that I'm around frequently are. There's the people that can just rattle off all the specs, like baseball cards and baseball players.
Yep.
A generation ago, people could tell the batting average of whoever, and like I'm really bad at that too on baseball.
Sports.
But recognize a model from a mile and a half away.
Yeah.
And like I'm all right at that, but that's not really me. I'm more into the dynamics of how the car's built and the engineering and the architecture of it. So I am a car guy, right? I'm sitting here looking at a Mark III GTI in what must be at least 4 million pieces. So I'm into that and work on cars. It all sort of started as a little kid, being that terrible child that took everything apart in our house and had a low success rate of reassembly. So when I got my driver's license, I was like, yes, freedom card. And it really was the next natural step was to start tinkering around with my Jeep at the time.
What kind of Jeep?
It was a Wrangler, I think a YJ, if I remember correctly.
What years of those?
So that would have been, it was a 95.
Okay.
The last year of the square headlights.
Yeah.
And of course,
okay.
the last year of OBD1, which was awesome. And I love that thing. If I could find it again and it wasn't a complete rust bucket, I would pay a stupid amount of money for it.
The same one or just the
same one?
Oh, okay.
Same one. I'd definitely step it up. Even one that was kind of close, but it was a 4-cylinder 5-speed, man. I think I got it up to 80 one time going down a hill.
Top up or down?
Top up or top down? I want to say it was the top up, because I mean 80's fast in a Jeep.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
It really
Especially
is.
those old ones, and I don't know that I would have had the fortitude, we'll say, to go that fast with the top off.
So your Jeep was your first one, and that's when you started tinkering. I'm having a hard time talking today. That's when you started tinkering around. What did your tinkering involve? Did you really start getting into modifications or just fixing or?
Yeah, it was pretty low key type stuff. Taking parts off, refinishing stereo stuff. That was sort of my gateway into the car world was car audio stuff, and worked some pretty crappy retail jobs that I thoroughly hated. Sold cars for a while. I was pretty good at that, but I didn't love it. And then I was like, I don't know, dude, you like cars, you like fixing stuff, maybe you should go to tech school. So I went to tech school, and that was great. A lot of positive experiences for me. I know a lot of people have some negative opinions of tech schools in general or community college tech schools and think they're very overpriced. And a lot of people are right, but it was the right move for me anyway, knowing very little about cars going in. Signed up with the Volkswagen Academy. This would have been 2003. And trained with VW for 11 or 13 weeks, I forget. That was awesome. Learned a lot about VW, of course. Got my first dealership job and still have said dealership job today.
So you've worked at the same place in the same position essentially for this whole time?
Yeah, same place, and I've moved positions around. I started as the FNG.
Oh yeah,
and like the suit. I don't think you could have been a less experienced technician coming out of technician training than I was. But started at the bottom, became a team leader after about a year and a half, and then was doing the job of a shop foreman for about 10 years, and then officially got that title 2 years ago. At least the pay came along with it, I should say.
Well, that's good. That's good. I know. I know every dealership kind of runs how the hours are paid out and clocking and everything. Like everything's different. The two dealerships I worked at, one did manual. Each tech had to manually punch in a card in and out when they did a job. The very first place I worked at was all digital. They just logged on to ADP and just. They logged their time that way. And it was actually a lot easier for the service writer to keep track of things, I think, because it was all digital. Their stories could be altered that way or entered in that way digitally, which was a little bit nicer. So how do you guys run things in your shop?
Yeah, we do the ADP way, which, gosh, I can't imagine. I mean, the ADP way seems completely outdated today.
Yeah.
I can't imagine there's a dealership, mom and pop shops, not that that's quite as vital in a mom and pop shop. I don't think the punch times and punching on and off jobs, but I can't imagine a dealership in 2017 still having that manual time clock. So yeah, we use ADP. It's pretty good if you use it the way it's designed and you use the features of it that are available. It's awesome. Unfortunately, I think most people don't really utilize those features, but
yeah,
God, I
there
can't
is
imagine having to handwrite a story.
yeah, there is a ton that ADP can do. I know I worked at that dealership for a year as a writer, and in that year I learned, God, an immense amount of information, more than any one person should probably know. But having to go in and like it would get to the point with volume that, okay, the tech did this job, but he didn't write the story. He didn't finish. He left a detail out that I know is a very, especially for warranty claims, I know this is a very important detail that needs to be in the story. Instead of me walking out to the shop, finding it, I would just log in and go, okay, I'll enter it in here. No big deal. So and there's a ton that can do. ADP, for those of you who don't know, they're a pretty big company. We have a branch that's near us here in Allentown. They're in I think it's Fogelsville. That's right, like the Fogelsville, Trexlertown area. But they do a lot. A lot of people know ADP as the HR and accounting company. Everyone knows them for being able to do pay stubs and stuff like that. And actually, good friend of the show, Lars Reese works for them. And I
does he really?
Yeah, and I had applied for a job there at one point too in sales. But yeah, so there's a way for techs to just punch in and punch off a job, because that's how else you're going to pay a tech if you don't know how much time they have into it. Yeah. So now the wonders of the tech world, as a mechanic, I'm assuming you guys are flat rate.
Yes. I officially moved off the line, like I said, about 2 years ago, but our guys are solo flat rate. We do work on teams. So one advisor has 2 or 3 technicians that they work with, but the guys don't share hours. Everybody's responsible for their own. I think technically the industry calls it a lateral support system, but that sounds really stupid to me. Like, what the hell does that mean? Yeah. So I just refer to it as the team-based.
Yeah, I was going to ask. When I first started, we didn't actually have teams. It was just 2 riders shared, everyone in the shop. As the work came out, it was whoever was available, and it worked okay. Definitely when we moved to the team, the teams, 2 teams, 2 riders, 2 teams, it did speed certain things up, and there was a little competition in between teams too. So I don't know if that's a thing with you guys as well.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there can be some back and forth. We're also on a 4-day work week for 3 of the 4 teams, so that adds a sprinkle of interesting into the mix as well. But I like that setup a lot. The advisor only has her guys or his guys that they got to worry about. Yeah. They can better manage their customers. They can better manage workflow rather than the central dispatch system, especially in a smaller shop. That's probably okay, but in the bigger dealerships, I'm picturing how that works, and it sounds like a nightmare for an advisor anyway to have any kind of order and control over their schedule and what goes on in the shop in their specific shop.
Well, I can tell you from starting off that way, if you have good chemistry with the other advisor, if the 2 advisors had, like for me, it was only a 2 advisor. It wasn't a massive dealership. If you have good chemistry with each other, it does balance out really well. But hey, if that person has to take a sick day or you have to take a sick day, it throws everything off. Man, Chewy's going to town on that squeaker.
I was wondering what that was.
Yeah, that's Chewy. He's 4 months old. He's a good dog though. But yeah, so okay. What kind of hours do you guys pull in? Like when does all the teams start at the same time, or are they staggered?
So because we have 3 teams on 4-day, 1 team on 5-day. The 5-day guys work Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. The other guys rotate. They're 7 to 6, except Saturdays 7 to 4. So they all start at their start time, either 7 or 8, and it works out pretty well because then the dealership's filled at the bulk of the day. As far as hours turned, boy, that really depends. We have a couple of guys that are that hustle and work real hard, and lately anyway, the last year and a half has been what's the right word? an anomaly. That's not the word I want to say.
Well, you know what?
but we'll go
We're
with
not
that one.
we're not even going to touch on Dieselgate. I really that because that is a that can go down a rabbit hole that I know you've had your rant, you've had your time on that. I have my own opinions about it.
I'm sure you heard plenty.
You know, I was very, very fortunate that I got out of sales right before that hit. And
Nice.
I still have a lot of
call.
friends who were in sales at that dealership, and I was like, "Hey, man," I would still talk to them like, "What are you guys doing?" And they're like, "Actually," and it was weird because some of them were. They told me business actually hasn't slowed down for sales, which was weird. So I don't know if it was region wise or whatnot, but yeah, Dieselgate. We'll leave that out of it. I know I can tell you, my brother and my parents went through the buyback, and I think my dad was more annoyed that he had to go through the process than anything else. Neither
Yeah.
my brother or my parents really cared that what was happening. They just cared that they had to go through it.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, my sympathy level for that's pretty low because they probably also got a big fat check
Well,
to go along with that frustration. So my thing was always like, anybody that wants to complain about it, if you want to give me like half of that,
Yeah.
I'll do all the work for you and then
Yeah.
just show
Yeah.
up. But you know, it's fine. It's whatever, right? It's
Yeah.
happened. None of us have any control over it. At least now we're starting to move away from the negative. You know, just this week, in fact, we got about 20 cars, 20 of the new model year 15 cars prepped and ready to go out on the lot. So at
the
least
diesels.
those cars, yeah, the diesels.
Right.
So at least those are going to start flowing soon. And
Cool.
I've heard that people are willing to pay a premium for those cars, which is mind-boggling to me. Why someone would want to pay a premium for a car that's been sitting for a year and a half? But
Yeah.
the market decides that, not me.
Yeah, that is weird, especially when usually import like German, Japanese, imported brands typically don't have markup. It is what it is. Markup is usually a domestic thing, so paying premiums for this stuff that's kind of new to the import.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely,
market.
I would say there could be examples of certain cars that some people really, really want. I mean, like
Well, specialty cars like the R32, the Golf R.
Well, yeah, no, because I was browsing the other day because one of my coworkers is looking for a car, and she's like, I always kind of like the Evos, and there's still some of those final year 15s that are, haven't been purchased by anybody,
Right.
and they're still, I don't want to say, they're definitely less than I think their estimated MSRP was like 40,000 or something. Some of them are going for like 35, but there's one for sale for like 88 grand that nobody in the fucking world is gonna buy. I mean, I'm sorry.
Well, no, somebody will.
Not for that. I really don't. I
You know what
really
it is,
would
though?
hope that somebody is not the person to buy that car for $88,000.
I'm sure if you really look into that car, I bet you there's a bunch of options that
I don't know.
were added on.
I think I did look at it a while because it's been up for months, and I think I did look at it a while back, and it.
Or a weird color. I know.
I don't know.
I'm not going to say which dealership it is, but there's a local Audi dealership to us.
Yeah.
That just gave it away. There's only one. Who had what's the bright blue that came on the R8s? You know what I'm talking. It's like a light blue.
Yeah. I don't know the name of the color, but I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did they have?
It's a specialty color. They put it on an A4 because Audi you can order random colors.
Yeah,
it's a prestige package or whatever it is for the colors. And this put that A4. It's an A4 at like almost 60 grand for an A4.
That's insane.
And it's been sitting for a while. Last I knew, I hadn't actually stopped over to see if it was there, but it sat for a while. I'm like, no shit. You put an expensive color that nobody wants on it. So
Yeah.
but that's good. You guys are getting those through. I actually did see a new Mark 7 wagon TDI on the road the other day. It didn't have a dealership label on it, so I don't know where it was from. Maybe they weren't from the area, or maybe they requested no sticker on it. But I thought it was very interesting because I'm like, I haven't seen a new TDI on the road. But
Yeah, we had sold a handful of them before this had gone on, and I think the average number that got held back was about 30 or so for dealerships. But we had been servicing them pretty regular before and then even during this process because there's still a good chunk of people that are getting their car fixed or modified as they're calling it.
Yeah.
And that's cool. I'm glad that some people are keeping it, but the devastating number of those cars, I don't know, I'm sure you guys have seen the pictures of
oh yeah,
the sea of I want to say the sea of dead
Yeah.
TDIs, because what's actually going to happen to those cars is still a bit up in the air. But some of the conversations with that that I've had with some people, I'm becoming less and less optimistic about their future.
If you ever have that conversation with my father, Mr. Walter Ambrose, he'll tell you some good theories of what he thinks will happen with those cars. One of which, I guess it is plausible that they may get sold to a different market other than the U.S. market or North American market for someone who doesn't have the emissions restrictions that we do. So that's his big theory, is that they're just going to end up selling it to another market and make all this money back.
Yeah, I don't see that happening. One of the keys in the court settlement thing is that they can only be sold outside the U.S. after they've been modified. So,
right.
While maybe some of that'll change with a new administration in the country, I don't see that happening. I think they're all either going to get fixed, like all the reasonable ones. Some of them are trashed. And there's really no fix. But
did you guys see any of the cars that people thought about the loophole? Like, oh, hey, it doesn't have to have seats.
We saw a couple with, like, one had some pretty decent damage on it. A couple had, the door smashed in a little bit, but nothing like that jackass that stripped his car out. And, had that dude not said anything and not made a big hubbub about it, he probably would have got away with it. But instead, he acted like an idiot, posted that crap all over the internet. It got traction on, like, Car Throttle and Jalopniks. And then Volkswagen, as they should, told him to go screw. And, this dude is a car salesman. Well, I should say this dude was a car salesman. And I can tell you, if that was my employee, that would have also cost him his job for acting like a damn jackass.
Yeah. So, Charles, we actually had the pleasure of talking at Wookiees in the Woods.
We did. What an awesome event. Boy, do I love that event.
And was this your second year going?
Yeah, this was my second time heading up there.
And you actually got to drive this time, whereas last year you were a passenger, correct?
Yeah, my last year I was in my wife's Tiguan, which, as one can imagine, is not the best mountain road vehicle.
But 4Motion.
It was not 4Motion.
Oh, you don't have 4.
It's also still not 4Motion.
You live in the South. You guys don't need 4Motion.
Yeah, dude, we don't need 4Motion at all.
It was weird when I was selling cars. People were like, "Oh, the Tiguan's. I want the front wheel drive." I'm like, "Ma'am, we live in Pennsylvania. We don't. I've never driven a front wheel drive Tiguan because we don't get them up here. We only get the 4Motion ones up here because it's region. That's all we need. So you brought your wife's Tiguan, and this year you ended up coming up with an all-track, right?
Yeah, I pulled a brand new all-track off the lot. The dealership was super cool about letting me take one, and they're not exactly flying off the shelves anyway, so it was a pretty easy sell. I wanted to try and take one of the two Golf Rs that we have, but that's a little harder to swing a $40,000 car that nobody wants a mile put on, let alone almost 1,000 in the mountains.
What was your drive distance wise from where you live?
So I want to say total I put about 800 miles on the car. It's 320, 340 one way, and then putzing around the area and then back. So it's almost dead on 5 hours 45 minutes time wise.
Not too bad.
I think you had literally exactly half of what we did.
That's basically
for
what
mileage,
it's coming out to.
Yeah, we did 1,700 change.
Yeah.
Wow.
Round trip.
Nice.
And we're not even the furthest traveled either.
No. I don't know if you got a chance to talk to Mr. Peach, Todd Peach, when you were down there.
I spoke with him briefly. I think I had met him last year, but holy crap, like Washington State.
Yeah, he's a cool guy. He really is. We interviewed him for the podcast, so
awesome.
Getting into that, talking about that whole the whole Wookiees experience and everything. I have a question for you, Charles. As far as being in your profession, because I as somebody that has tinkered here and there with some stuff, but never really
You've dabbled.
I've dabbled. Never really considered it as a profession. So for someone who has been in the profession for obviously a significant portion or significant amount of years, how do you view vehicle modification? Is that something that continues to interest you, or do you feel that as because it's your job, the idea of having a modified car or wanting to modify cars kind of trails away, because I feel like I've definitely met people who are like, oh, you know, who mess around with cars. You know, I did the suspension on my car, I did this, you know, I have a turbo back now, yada yada. And they're like, I could totally do this, you know, for a living. And in my head, I'm like, yeah, but you're not working on your own car anymore at that point. Is it one of those things where it's like, yeah, I enjoy putting on performance parts to my car, but would I actually enjoy, you know, working as a mechanic? And that's
I think I know the answer.
Kind of for you, I kind of want to know what that vice versa is. I mean, does modification become less or more interesting, or how do you feel about it now, as you know, with it being your profession?
Yeah, so there's pretty much like three sides to that answer. The side of like me personally, yeah, love modified cars. Love it, love it, love it. I think it's cool. You know, I have my taste. I love how everybody can have their own taste and do their own thing. And I don't like it. That's cool. I don't have to. Nobody built it for me anyway. Despite the vast amount of hate in the automotive industry at large, I think modified cars are cool from an enthusiast standpoint and from someone that likes to modify their own car. As a dealership technician, I hate it. And it's hard because sometimes people bring really cool cars in and I want to appreciate them as an enthusiast. But as a technician in a dealership, I hate it because now, and it sounds so stupid and frivolous, but now I have to account for that. So as you guys know, like, everything in the automotive world is built on efficiency. We get paid a flat time on a job, no matter how long it takes us. So if I'm doing brakes on a car and I'm screwing around trying to get the wheels off because they have these special adapters on it, sure, it's only 5 minutes, right?
But every minute
that's
counts.
5 minutes that I'm losing, and that's 5 minutes I'm not on the next job. So it actually works out to be more like 8 minutes, and that's 8 minutes on those two. What about all the rest of the jobs down the road? So as a dealership tech, I don't really love when that happens. And then there's also the question of, okay, they have this mod. What else do they have? Is there modification influencing, you know, or having control over what maybe their problem with their vehicle has? And so, and not to hate on us enthusiasts, but a lot of times customers in general aren't fully upfront with their car. To me and an advisor. So I have to weed through the bullshit to figure out the truth. And that's not just in the modified car world. That's can be customers in general. And then there comes the standpoint of, would I want to put performance parts on cars all day long? Probably not. I think that's a really hard, let me back that up. I would love to do that, but that's a really hard way to make a living, you know, unless you're at a really good, highly productive, big shop that does that all the time.
That's all
you're going to struggle. And in addition, like, you can't just put performance parts on. You still have to supplement the business with maintenance because that's really where you make your money. You know, you're not going to crush a turbo swap time-wise, but you are on a tune-up service and a transmission service. So it's a tough question to answer because I do love it and I'm super into it. It's just, if it comes into the dealership, it's that, all right, here we go kind of mentality. And I hate feeling that way about it because I want to be more excited about it.
Well, I know a good friend of the show who's been on, Kevin, the human DSG, as we call him. Kevin, I met him working at Volkswagen. He was a tech there, and now then we worked together at a small Volkswagen Porsche Audi shop, and he still works there. I've had this talk with him, God, I don't know how many times, also from him wanting to change professions too, kind of get out, because at the end of the day, Kevin is a car guy. He loves cars, and he does like to work on his own stuff, but you spend all day working on somebody else's stuff, and then you come home, you don't want to fix your stuff. Or vice versa, you just want to fix your stuff, but you got to go work on other people's crap, and you know, I could see that. I've never worked as a mechanic. I've helped out in shops, but I could imagine that it's the same thing. So I own a detailing business. If I spend all day cleaning somebody's car, or more than one car in a day, you can bet the very last car I want to touch is my own until maybe the next day or the next day I have off. You know, I can see that.
Absolutely.
But yeah, for those who may be interested in becoming a mechanic or becoming a tech at a dealership, at least, maybe small shops will be a little bit different. But the pace is very different at a dealership, or it can be, I should say. For those who don't know what flat rate is, you have someone in the wonderful world of the dealership has come up with a book of flat rate times. So if you have one operation, let's say tire rotation, it only pays, I'll throw out a number here, half an hour. No matter, you can get it done in 10 minutes, you can get it done in 40 minutes. You're only going to get paid for that 30 minutes worth of work. So as a technician, it pushes you to want to be able to work quickly and efficiently, so that you're not losing time, because time is money. So yeah, it kind of forces you to become very good at your craft and very quick and efficient at it. You have some jobs that you're gonna lose your ass on. I think warranty is probably a little bit more. You're gonna lose, because there's warranty times and regular customer pay times, and why those are different, Charles, I have no idea.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of those questions that don't have good answers in the industry. About the warranty thing, I actually never really hated working on cars under warranty, because it gave me flexibility that I wouldn't have under customer pay. I could justify doing tests that, if I was 95% sure of a problem, I would probably sell that to a customer.
Right.
Under warranty, I can run those next 5 tests, get paid for them, not feel guilty that I might be overcharging a customer on it. And, you can be more thorough, and I liked that. One of the traveling back in time to the 2004 Touareg, if you knew anyone that had one of those. So that was when I first started at the dealership. And like I mentioned, I was the FNG, so all the Touaregs, I don't know, give it to the new guy. And I was too stupid to know any different, so I was like, yeah, I'll work on it. Cool. There was probably a year and a half, maybe a year, where I, not exaggerating, worked on every single Touareg that came to the shop. So you would think that I would feel that way, but after about a month, dude, I was making more time than anybody else in the shop.
Yeah.
So because I figured it out. I figured out how to work on them and how to craft my stories in a way that I would be compensated far beyond the time I had into it. And you find shortcuts and things that you need to do these certain things. And then it eventually got out, because I was always in a good mood, even though I was working on these stupid cars everyone hated. Some dude's finally like, man, why are you so, you're in a good mood all the time? I'm like, dude, I made 85 hours last week. Why wouldn't I be in a good mood? You just work on Touaregs all day. I'm like, yeah, I know.
There's a lot wrong with them.
How do you do that? I'm like, well, here's a couple little tricks that I learned. And then everybody found out, and so everybody wanted to work on the Touaregs. I'm like, you guys are killing me, man. This is my bread and butter.
Yeah. And actually, one of the things, I know I told you this when we were talking at the sound off. One of the things I love about your channel and what you're doing is, it's really the only way I can think about phrasing it, is you're humanizing the dealership experience by putting a name and face to the schmuck behind the bay doors. Because when people come in to buy a car, they're usually happy, unless they just totaled it or they got told in service that it's no longer worth fixing anymore. They're happy. They get to go pick out something new with new technology or newer than what they had. And so it's usually a positive experience. It's good. Yeah, nobody likes paying $30,000 for a car, but at least when you pay that, you're getting a new car out of it. I shouldn't say nobody. Very few people are happy about going to the service department.
Yeah.
Because they're having something that's broken, or they were told to come in for this service and they know it's going to cost money. And some
cases they're even afraid because they think they're going to, the whole stealership mentality.
Stealership, exactly. Yeah. And some people, a lot of it's not a tangible difference. Like, some people don't get the benefit of having an alignment done on your car. Because they can't, it's not tangible. They can't, unless their steering wheel is off by 90 degrees, they won't be able to tell. The average person cannot tell that their car was aligned. But the benefit is massive. It can save you hundreds in tires and other parts going bad. So,
and the industry's, I think, done, by and large, a horrible job at teaching customers that,
Yes.
Yeah.
we expect customers to know all the things that we know, and they don't. I mean, most people just don't care enough about it. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with that, but they just don't care enough about it. It's not important to them enough to learn what an alignment truly is and what the value of it is. And you take your car in and you get, hey, do you want this alignment? It's $80. Well, no.
Yeah.
Nothing's wrong. My car's not pulling.
It's driving straight. My steering wheel's good. Yeah, exactly.
That's what I was. The other day, I introduced my one roommate to ONR, to Optimum No Rinse, for whoever doesn't know. But so, it was a nice day. I'm like, you know what? Let me wash the car. And he was, big foam guy and yada yada. I'm like, oh, this is the stuff I've been talking about. Give it a shot. See how you like it. I filled him. I prepped him a bucket. I got him ready. I'm like, here you go. So we're washing our cars together. He finished up, and he's like, oh, I don't think my tires feel weird. They're not even. I'm like, what do you mean? Because I'm like kind of still washing. He goes, yeah, it's not wearing evenly. I'm like, oh, and I look inside. I'm like, oh yeah, and he had like he's massive positive, like massive, like the outside of his tires are like roast.
Oof.
And so I tell him, I'm like, oh, when's the last time you got an alignment? Never. I'm like, what do you mean you never got an alignment?
Yeah.
Like, how is that? Like, to me, it's like, dude, you're thinking you're saving, but you're really spending more.
Yeah.
Because
you're going to cook tires.
Yeah, exactly.
There was a point in my life, I don't know if I should be proud of this or not, but I was selling alignments once every 6 months or less. But we were also getting a kickback for selling alignments. Because the mentality was, and I will say, there are some greasy people in the auto world. There
Absolutely.
just are. They run dealerships, they run mom and pop shops, they run gas stations.
There are some engine selling companies for Volvos, warranty companies for Volvos.
But I feel like there's a backstory there. But yeah, the last 13 episodes has totally earned its reputation.
Yeah.
And there's everyone has a bad shop experience story or bad mechanic story, and one of the reasons that it was funny the way that you described my channel as humanizing us and what we do is that was kind of the point. I wanted to take the experience that someone would get if they came in, like the experience my customers get, my personal customers that come to me to get their car worked on. I wanted to take that and what I teach them and explain to them and how I help them with their car. I wanted to bring that online and help everyone, everyone I could, whether it's Volkswagen enthusiasts or the lady that wants to just get her kids to school,
or my mom.
It was.
So quick question for you, Charles. What do you feel, or have you noticed, since the Humble Mechanic began, and since this became a thing, after you built your reputation and everything, do you ever feel like you've had more people come in search of you doing work on their car at any point, or do you think that your position in the internet world, if you want to call it that, has generated more? I'm not going to necessarily say revenue, but interest or customers going to your particular unnamed dealership for service?
I would say on a small scale, yeah, that definitely does happen. Had I very early on really talked about where I work and used that as leverage to get customers to come to me, it would be a totally different ball game. I would have had,
I'm sure,
way more of a customer base. But early on there was some, I don't want to say disagreement, but there was some awkwardness between myself and the dealership and what we had going on. And, they didn't stop me from doing what I was doing, but they also weren't really excited about it. They're very walking on eggshells kind of mentality because, I could have said anything I wanted to, F this dealership, they suck. And nobody would have stopped me. On the flip side, I could have said, hey guys, check it out. This dealership's super awesome. You should come here. Which is probably
treading very slowly.
Yeah. Our dealership, no joke, is really awesome. My boss is cool. Our warranty clerk is great. Our advisors are awesome. For the most part, our techs are really damn good and do a good job taking care of their customers. So whenever I hear someone's like, oh, I got ripped off, my first thought is, well, maybe you didn't.
Yeah,
But
or
I
maybe it wasn't
forget that-
explained properly, and I think that's building value in something is huge. Yeah, you may think you got ripped off when in reality you paid what is industry par, and your writer, your consultant, did not explain what you just fully purchased, which might be the industry standard, but they didn't explain it. They didn't build the value in what you bought.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that's one reason why I think advisors should have probably more technical knowledge or technical experience than most of them
Yes.
do. I've had 7 or 8 advisors in my career, and the ones that actually the one that was a technician before he was an advisor was far and away the best advisor that I ever had. And because you can speak with authority and from direct experience, and you know how to explain it to a customer in a way that, it's not like the technical jargon that we talk about where the average Joe customer would be like, what the hell is that?
Yeah, that was a big thing that I found. What made me more successful as a writer is really the consultant or the writer has to be a translator between the tech and the customer. If you come up to the desk and say,
listen, we saw that you have some blow by, so we ran a compression test and your numbers are low. The person's going to say, what?
Yeah, exactly.
What are you talking about?
Exactly.
Right.
So being able to take that raw data and converting it and translating it to someone who doesn't know dick about cars.
Yeah.
There's oil that is getting past the rings on the piston, which is not supposed to happen, or it's past the tolerance of what's supposed to happen.
Yeah.
Being able to translate is huge, and I'm a firm believer. Honesty is the best policy. I refuse to lie to a customer. I live by that. It only comes back to bite you, and especially in the dealership world.
Well, the way you can really just explain it to the customer is, you may not like what I'm telling you, but you can guarantee that I'm telling you the truth. I mean,
Right.
I don't want to tell someone they need $5,000 worth of repairs. That sucks. I wouldn't want anyone to tell me that. But
On a Touareg, that's just brakes.
yeah, not too far off. Well, I guess if you're doing them all the way around, you're right. You're at the door. But just be upfront with people. Tell them the truth. You don't have to be cold and heartless about it. You can be compassionate about it.
There are ways
and
to
empathetic,
translate the info.
but you're just tell them the truth. And from a customer standpoint, I think something that a lot of people make the mistake of is they'll hop around from shop to shop to shop to shop to shop.
Yes.
Instead of putting the work in ahead of time to
Build
the
a
right
relationship
shop for them.
Yeah.
You may work with me and we get along awesome. The next customer, even though I treat them exactly the same, could hate me. Well, not me, but someone else, because I'm so likable, right?
You have the face.
Yes, we bring it back
plus
around.
plus you have your own show and everything. So
Well, and that's something I wanted to bring in. I wanted to touch on a little bit. So when you set out to create this channel, this YouTube channel, and Facebook page, and everything you have going for you, what was your initial goal? What was your ambitions for this? Did you expect it to get as big as it did? What was going through your mind at this point?
So early on, it was, I have a story to tell and I want to tell it. And I knew at some point it would grow in some way. What that way exactly was, I never really knew. And the audio and video really didn't come in till a little over 2 years ago. I had done a lot of writing, which was stupid because I'm terrible at it, and a lot of picture posting and things like that, and talking through text. I had always wanted to do audio, to do video, but that first show, that first episode is really damn hard to do.
Oh,
And it's even worse in a video because you're just looking at, as I'm looking at my tripod where my camera would be, you're looking at a little box and you have to tell it a story.
yeah.
And you get no, it's not like a conversation. You get no feedback. You don't know when someone gives you that look like you're an idiot, that you just said left instead of right, or made a total boner mistake and pointed to the wrong side of a turbocharger when you're talking about it. Which I've done.
I was going to say that sounds personal.
Oh yeah, that is direct. There's about 100 comments on YouTube from that video. I was like, yeah, I got it. Like after the first one, I was like, oh damn, I screwed that one up. But so it was hard. I didn't have the guts to just do that until about 2 years ago, when it's like, all right, just do it. But I never really saw it growing as primarily a YouTube channel that lives in other social spaces. I expected like my website to just grow and it be this really cool written blog about cars and whatnot. I never saw the YouTube thing coming, and my only regret is like, dude, you should have just started with this. Your first shows would have sucked like they sucked anyway, but you would be 5.5 years in, and you would be light years ahead of where you are today.
Well, and one thing about the internet that I have learned, I'll pass this on to anyone who needs this information, but honestly, because you just said that you wish you would have focused more on that, and that, well, obviously it's knowing what you know now, but the internet is very is kind of screwy with what becomes viral, what becomes great,
and when it happens.
and when it's not. There is no. I don't think there is a formula really for how to get big on the internet. Because if there was, everyone would do it. But it's all timing. One person, just the right person, happens to look at it at the right time, shares it with a bunch of the more right people, and it blows up. You could have done, if you would have focused all on YouTube back then when you started, you may have gotten stuck with just maybe 10 people for 5 years. You never know. And instead, you went the route you did. And how many subscribers are you at now?
111 some odd, 113 some odd thousand. So yeah, like I'm not like, oh, poor me, I'm stupid, but well, it's about some things, I guess, but this particular case, no, it's just you look back and go, okay, had I had this path of success, here's where I would be. But you're totally right. Who knows? I mean, let's face it, I stopped essentially writing blog posts. The next blog post I wrote could have been the one that got me a book deal.
Yeah.
It would have never happened, trust me, but it could have been. So you never know. And that's why I think if someone's going to commit to something like this, whether it's a podcast or a video show or a written blog or whatever, you got to stick to it. You got to be consistent. You got to put good content out. You got to be yourself. And I think we had this exact conversation.
Yep.
You got to be you. Because if you're not, people will see through that really, really quick.
Yeah, anyone who has listened from the very beginning of this podcast, I even went back and I've gone back and listened to the first two after 10 episodes, and went back and listened to the first two, and I cringed. It was
pretty shitty.
We really wanted at first a very family friendly. Which, and I'm not going to sit here and say that we're not family-friendly people. I can definitely, I've gone to church, so I know how to contain myself for at least an hour. And I have children. It's not like I walk around the house swearing all day. But
at the same time, you want to feel in your element.
Exactly.
And, if we're talking about certain topics that we have either experience in or certain amount of knowledge in or passion in, yet we're presenting it in a way that isn't ourselves, then we're cutting ourselves short and we're cutting our audience short.
And what's nice is, having never met you in person, I knew exactly what to expect, because you are who you are when you do your videos. So that's where you immediately took that turn. We're like, you know what?
Thank you for that.
Yeah, I hope.
I try and keep the swearing minimal. I sure don't want Dad to flip it on and have to send Junior out of the room because I'm dropping F-bombs like crazy. But,
see, we want that. No, just kidding.
But if I say shit, like, that's how people talk. So
a shop is way worse than that. Jeez. The things I've heard inside of a shop.
Oh, yeah.
So okay, that's good. So what does the future hold for Humble Mechanic?
Oh, that is a bold question, isn't it? I don't know. Of course, my next handful of goals. I'll actually next week, or depending on when this show comes out, it'll be late April. I'll be traveling to Detroit for the Shell Ecomarathon, which should be a lot of fun. It's like collegiate student age kids or students, mostly in the engineering world, that build fuel efficient cars, and then they race to see who can go the furthest.
I have heard of this.
The least amount of fuel.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's super cool, and like these kids are all passionate about it, and they work with big name sponsors, Michelin and a bunch of other brands. Michelin's just the one that popped into my head. Obviously Shell, since it's the Shell Ecomarathon.
I'm a big fan of Shell.
So it's cool to do stuff like that, and I've never been, so I'm pumped about that. I'm sitting here, like I said, looking at a Mark III in a billion pieces. My most immediate / long-term goal is to get that old girl back together and put maybe some go fast parts on it.
Yeah, it's for those of you for those listening who live on a rock and don't know, you have a Mark III VR6 GTI. It's the baby Wookiee, how long have you had that car?
I bought that car in September of 15.
Okay.
And I drove it for probably 2 months, 3 months, 6 months. I drove it for about 6 months. And then it started tweaking a little bit. I also sold my Mark I that had a VR6 swap in it to fund the full rehab of this GTI. And anybody that's ever done a project car, like a legit project car, not putting springs on their car or cold air intake,
build thread, man.
Yeah, this stuff takes it usually takes 3 times more money than you expected.
Yep.
And it usually takes 5 times longer. And for me, I have the added, I don't want to say hindrance, but the added element of filming it, because I'm obviously documenting everything that I do on it. One, to justify the parts to my wife, and two, let's face it, to supplement the income and pay for some of these parts.
Well, it's funny actually. When we were interviewing Mr. Peach, he had said that he calls his wife the treasurer. And I lost it when he said that, but that made me think of that. So.
Yeah, that's very much a common husband-wife relationship, yes. I think. So yeah, that I really want to get that one done pretty soon. Fall run, Wookiee fall run, definitely
nice. Yes.
Want to have her together, and I don't think that'll be too much of a problem. Long term for the show, I like where I'm at now. I like my subscriber numbers. I have enough that if I wanted a brand deal, like a brand will take me seriously, but it's small enough that it's still, to me anyway, a very good, tight-knit community.
It's manageable, yeah.
Right. So I'm pretty pumped about that. Of course, as it grows, that's cool too. But I don't know long term. Maybe I'll have my own TV show one day, or I actually did 2 auditions this week for TV shows. It's super weird.
Well, I'm sure you and Aaron are going to get along great on Fast and Loud.
Yeah. But yeah,
Stunt
that's
double.
Like super weird to me. I mean, God, I never, ever in my life, if 10 years ago someone would have said, dude, you're going to audition for a TV show on the History Channel, I'd be like, what? You're full of shit. Get out of here. Yeah. And so that happened this week. It's kind of cool. I think I have 0 chance because I'm definitely not an expert in the field that they were looking for. But
well, I wouldn't say 0, because if you had 0, you probably wouldn't have had the audition.
I have about a 1% chance.
There you go.
So you're telling me there's a chance.
60% of the time, it'll work every time.
Every time. That's right. Well, cool. Well, we're going to wrap up this conversation, but we have a little segment we've been doing at the end of every episode since episode 11, where we normally nominate a CoDriver of the week, and this is usually done by just nominating anyone who's been either very supportive or very inspirational to you as an individual or as in the car world. And this week, actually, we're going to put you on the spot, Charles, and ask you to nominate the CoDriver of the week, if you would like.
Nominate the CoDriver of the week. So I hope that I didn't ruin this already, but or someone hasn't already done this, but because we're so close out of this event, I'm going to nominate Wookiees in the Woods staff as the CoDriver of the week. They managed to put together an event that raised like $14,000 something.
Yes.
And that is nuts. So bravo to those guys.
Yeah.
Shout out to the Blount County Rescue, who had to snatch two GTI or two R's off the mountain and a GTR, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
Tell me you saw the Jalopnik write up on that.
I didn't, but I have some. So I gave a buddy of mine my GoPro on Saturday for his Corrado, and he didn't catch it happening, but he caught the footage afterwards where they were directing traffic. The Killboys guys caught me crossing the yellow line in one of their pictures, right? But if you look at the picture, there legit is debris in the road that was going around.
But it was assuming like on the shoulder or whatnot.
No, there was branches in the road.
Actually, I did stop on Thursday. I was going up to Maryville with my wife, and on the way back, there was a tree. It was right after that rain that was there. I stopped and actually picked a tree that had gone all the way across the road, and another Golf R stopped behind us and helped me. Two of the guys helped me pick it up, which thankfully some of those branches were quite heavy. Not that I'm a small guy, but they were heavy.
Trees aren't exactly the lightest.
Well, they were
things in the
wet
world
too.
either. Yeah.
So, and actually, this is I'll throw this out here. This is how I know there is karma and good things happen to good people eventually. The gentleman who had stopped to help, he won. It was him and his brother, but he had won the raffle that I had put in the Laminex set for the Bearded Detailer. So,
are you serious? That's awesome.
Yeah.
I actually have a similar story. I had met a gentleman and his wife earlier on Saturday, or maybe it was Friday night. I don't recall. Super cool dude, Bobby and Kristen. Awesome folks. Chatted with them for a good hour. Always cool, like, to meet fans of your show and whatnot. It's still a little uncomfortable for me. I'm not quite used to it yet, but I love it. Right? It's awesome.
We get it all the time. We get like thousands of emails a day. We
every day.
I can't leave my house.
We love you. Think of all the packages you get in the mail from your male and female fans.
Oh, mostly male. Yeah.
It's pretty great, but so like super cool dude, just BSing. He like does robotics for the Navy or something like that. So pretty interesting, and he's the one that ended up winning mine. That wasn't the 2 DSG kits. So I was like, holy crap, dude, you won. He's like, yeah, I'm excited. I'm like, cool.
Yeah, it's good times. Good times, good people. That's what keeps that event going is the good people. And you're absolutely right. So this week's CoDriver of the week is the Wookiees and the Wood Staff. They are the real MVP. And I know we talked about this with Abe. Not one person could run that whole thing by themselves. It really takes a family to do that. And happy birthday, Chase. So, well, that's going to wrap it up here. Charles, you want to give everyone your social media locations, what to look for?
I had fully expected you to say social security number. Like I was priming in my head what my response was going to be to that question. But so if you want to see more of my stuff, you can head over to humblemechanic.com. Of course, on YouTube, Humble Mechanic. Pretty much if you type in Humble Mechanic anywhere, you're going to get my goofy looking face. Stop by and say what up.
Awesome, and I'm going to be sure to add all the links to all your stuff in our show notes and everything like that too. So that's awesome.
Thank you.
Yep, I really appreciate you making the time and joining us on Gear Shift.
Absolutely, guys. It's been a pleasure, and I'd love to be back on at some point.
Well, we would love to have you, and we would. You can always invite us down to North Carolina to film with you. Alrighty, well, the next episode is going to be episode 19. That is going to be our off-roading episode. It's going to be May 22nd, and we're going to have guest host Matthew Hawthorne, who is a big Jeep guy. Charles, you might want to tune in for that one.
Nice.
Yeah, he's got a JK. I think that's the proper designation. It's a newer Rubicon. I think that's right. But he's going to be on. He's done a lot of off-road trips and whatnot, so we're looking forward to that. So, on that note, Charles, thank you very much.
All right, guys. Thanks a lot.
And I've been Christoph.
I've been Casper.
And we'll see you on the road. Gear Shift Podcast is a production of Gear Shift. If you have any questions, please email us at gearshiftpodcast@gmail.com or visit us on Facebook.